The air in Memphis, Tennessee in the early 1950s hung thick and humid, a sweet tea kind of heat that seeped into everything. For a young man named Elvis Presley, just starting to find his voice in the small smoky clubs and on local radio stations, that heat was as much a part of him as the guitar he cradled. He was lean with sandy blonde hair that flopped over his forehead when he got lost in a song, and eyes that held a surprising depth for someone so young. People were starting to notice him, the way he moved, the way his voice sent shivers down spines. But even with the buzz of his budding career, Elvis still walked the familiar streets of his neighborhood, the same streets he'd known since childhood. One particular afternoon, while walking home from Sun's studio, his mind buzzing with melodies and lyrics, he saw her. She was a slit of a girl, no older than 10 or 11, sitting alone on a worn-out porch swing in front of a house that looked like it had seen better days. Her clothes were clean, but patched, and her light brown hair was tied back in a simple, rather messy braid. What caught Elvis's eye wasn't her poverty, which was common enough in their neighborhood, but the way she held herself. There was a quiet stillness about her, a profound sadness that seemed too heavy for such a small frame. She wasn't crying or making any noise. She just sat there, sketching intently on a scrap of paper clutched in her hand, her brow furrowed in concentration. Elvis slowed his pace, instinctively curious. He wasn't one to intrude, but something about her drew him in. He saw her glance up, her eyes a startling shade of green meet his for a fleeting second before she quickly looked away, as if embarrassed to be seen. He noticed the way her shoulders slumped, a silent weight pressing down on her. He walked past, but her image stayed with him. He was used to seeing hardship, but there was something in her quiet dignity, her focused absorption in her drawing despite her circumstances, that tugged at his heart. He wondered about her family, about what made a child look so burdened. He remembered his own childhood, how hard his parents worked, how much they struggled, and the fear of not having enough. But he'd always had his mama's warmth, his daddy's steadfast presence. This girl, she seemed utterly alone in her world. The next day, Elvis found himself taking the same route. Almost subconsciously, he saw her again, this time sitting on the curb, sharing a single apple with a scruffy stray dog. She spoke to the dog in whispers, her voice too soft for him to hear, but her expression was one of gentle kindness. He noticed the way her fingers, smudged with charcoal, carefully broke off small pieces of the apple for the hungry animal. It wasn't pity he felt, but a deep well of empathy. He wanted to help to lighten her load, but he wasn't sure how. He wasn't rich, not yet. He was just a musician with a dream still living, paycheck to paycheck, trying to make ends meet. Later that week, he was at the local diner, nursing a cup of coffee and listening to the jukebox when he overheard a snippet of conversation from the booth behind him. "Poor Lily Mae," a woman's voice sighed. "Her folks, they just don't pay her no mind. Always off working, barely a roof over their heads. That child's practically raising herself." Lily Mae. So that was her name. The words confirmed his suspicions. He thought about his own Mama Gladys and how fiercely protective she was. How could anyone let a child like Lily Mae drift through life so unanchored? He started to see her more often, almost seeking her out, not in a creepy way, but from a distance, just watching. He saw her going into the local library, a small dusty place that always smelled of old paper and quiet dreams. He saw her lingering in front of the window of a small art supply shop, her eyes wide with longing as she stared at the bright tubes of paint and crisp sketchbooks. He knew that look, the yearning for something just out of reach. He had felt it countless times himself, wishing for a better guitar, a new pair of shoes, a way to lift his family out of poverty. One afternoon he heard her humming. She was sitting under an old oak tree in the park, still sketching. The tune she hummed was hauntingly beautiful, a simple melody, but full of emotion. It wasn't a song he recognized, but it struck him deeply. It was a tune that spoke of resilience, of quiet strength, of a soul that found beauty even in hardship. He realized then that Lily Mae wasn't just a sad little girl. She was an artist, a dreamer, a quiet force. And he knew with a certainty that settled deep in his bones that he had to do something, not for fame, not for recognition, but simply because it was the right thing to do. He just had to figure out how. The idea of simply giving her money felt wrong. It might help for a day or two, but it wouldn't solve the underlying problem, which wasn't just about money, but about a lack of opportunity, a lack of someone believing in her. He wanted to give her a chance to nurture that spark he saw in her. He wanted to give her hope, a path to express herself, to escape the confines of her world. It would have to be something subtle, something that empowered her without making her feel like a charity case. He walked on, the humid Memphis air still clinging to him, but his mind was no longer on his music. It was entirely on Lily Mae and the secret way he might just be able to help her bloom. The first spark of an idea, strange and unconventional, began to flicker in his mind. The humid Memphis summer days bled into each other, each one bringing Elvis closer to a decision about Lily Mae. He couldn't shake the image of her bent over her sketches or humming that quiet, soulful tune. He felt a responsibility, a pull in his gut that told him he couldn't just stand by. He knew what it felt like to be underestimated, to have big dreams in a small town with limited resources. But he also knew the power of a single person believing in you. Even if that person was just your mama. Lily Mae didn't seem to have that. Elvis decided to observe her more closely, to understand her routine, her habits. He wanted to know where she found her peace, her escape. He wanted to know how best to offer help without it, feeling like charity, something that might hurt her. Quiet pride. He discovered her secret place by accident. One scorching afternoon, he saw her slip away from her house, not heading to the library or the park, but down a narrow, overgrown alleyway behind a row of crumbling brick buildings. His curiosity piqued. He waited a few minutes, then followed discreetly. The alley opened up into a small, forgotten patch of land. In the middle stood an old, dilapidated shed, its paint peeling, its roof sagging. Most people would have dismissed it as an eyesore, a hazard, but Lily Mae didn't. She carefully pushed open the creaky wooden door and disappeared inside. Elvis waited a few moments, then crept closer. He peered through a crack in the wall just wide enough to see a sliver of the interior. The shed, despite its outward appearance, was surprisingly tidy inside. Lily Mae had swept away the dust and debris. A worn wooden crate served as a seat, and another as a makeshift table. On the crate table, she had spread out her collection of scavenged paper. Old grocery bags, flattened out, discarded flyers, the backs of envelopes. She had a few stubby pencils and a charcoal stick, clearly well-loved and nearly worn down to nubs. She was drawing, completely lost in her world. Her focus was absolute, her young face transformed by concentration. He could see the intensity in her eyes, the delicate way her hand moved across the paper. She wasn't just drawing, she was pouring her heart onto those recycled scraps. It was clear the shed was her sanctuary, her studio, a place where she could truly be herself, away from the harsh realities of her home life. Later, he overheard more whispers from neighbors. Lily Mae's parents worked long hours, barely home, struggling to put food on the table. They weren't bad people, just overwhelmed. And Lily Mae, quiet and self-sufficient, had slipped through the cracks. She often went hungry, and her clothes were threadbare. But what struck Elvis most was the lack of encouragement. The absence of anyone to notice her talent, to tell her she was good, that her dreams mattered. He realized then that the shed was more than just a place. It was a symbol of her hidden life, her dreams tucked away in a forgotten corner of the world. And it gave him an idea, a wild, almost impossible idea, but one that filled him with a quiet excitement. He spent the next few days planning. He knew Lily Mae wouldn't accept direct charity. He needed to be invisible, a ghost of kindness. He needed to leave things for her, things that would help her pursue her art, but in a way that felt like a discovery, a gift from the universe, rather than a handout. But how could he do it without being seen? The shed was secluded, but still someone might recognize him. He was starting to gain a little notoriety in Memphis. His face was becoming known, his hair, that sandy blonde, easily identifiable. He couldn't risk being seen, not just for his own privacy, but for Lily Meg's dignity. If people knew she was receiving anonymous help, they might gossip, and he didn't want to add to her burdens. He needed a way to transform himself, even if subtly. For these secret missions, he thought about disguises. A hat, dark glasses. But those felt too obvious, too theatrical. He wanted something more intrinsic, a change that felt like a commitment. Then it hit him. An idea so outlandish it made him grin his hair. It was his signature. That light, almost golden blonde. What if he made it so dark, so different, that for a moment he wouldn't be Elvis Presley, the aspiring singer, but someone else entirely? Someone who could slip through the shadows, leave gifts, and disappear without a trace. It wasn't about looking better or trendier. It wasn't about a new image for his music career. That thought didn't even cross his mission. It was about creating a visual distinction between his public self and this secret self, the one dedicated to helping Lily May. The dark hair would be a silent vow, a physical commitment to this hidden act of kindness. It would be his anonymous cloak. He started researching hair dye. Back then, it wasn't as common for men. Especially for such a dramatic change, he'd have to be careful. He didn't want to explain it to his mama. Not yet. This was his secret, his responsibility. He envisioned himself slipping into the alley, a shadowy figure under the cover of night, leaving a fresh sketchbook, a box of charcoal pencils, perhaps even a set of watercolors. The dark hair would help him blend into the night, making him less recognizable, just another shadow. More importantly, it would be a constant visible reminder to himself of the promise he was making to Lily Meg, a promise to nourish her hidden spark. It felt right, almost like destiny. This wasn't just about a child in need. It was about the kind of person he wanted to be, the values he wanted to live by. Helping Lily May quietly and anonymously felt more important than any record deal, any performance. It felt like the truest thing he could do, and the black hair would be the symbol of that truth. The idea of dyeing his hair black, initially a strange, almost whimsical thought, now began to solidify in Elvis's mind. It wasn't about vanity, it was about strategy, about commitment. He needed to be a ghost, a helpful spirit, not Elvis Presley, the budding singer. Pictured himself a dark silhouette against the moonlight, leaving a package at the entrance of Lily May's shed. The blonde hair, so distinctive, would be a beacon. Black, though, would melt into the night, making him harder to place, harder to remember. If someone caught a fleeting glimpse, he spent days wrestling with the practicalities. Where would he get hair dye? How would he apply it without his mama finding out right away? Gladys was observant, loving, and would worry if he did something so drastic without explanation. He didn't want to lie to her, but he couldn't tell her the full truth either. Not yet. This secret had to be protected, especially from the prying eyes of the neighborhood. His plan was simple in its core, but complex in its execution. He would buy art supplies, books, maybe even some good nourishing food. He would gather them discreetly. Then, under the cover of darkness, he would deliver them to Lily Meg's secret shed. The dark hair would be his uniform, his disguise for these clandestine missions of kindness. He walked past Lily May's house again one evening. She was sitting on the porch swing, just watching the stars. A profound loneliness etched on her small face. His resolve hardened. This wasn't about him. It was about her. Her dreams, her future. He wanted to give her a leg up, a push, a belief that someone somewhere cared enough to make a difference. He made his first secret purchase at a general store far from his neighborhood, where he wouldn't be recognized. He bought a small, plain sketchbook, a box of charcoal pencils, and a new clean eraser. Simple things. But to Lily May, he knew they would be treasures. He wrapped them carefully in a brown paper bag, securing it with twine. The next day he found himself in a drugstore, hovering nervously near the hair product aisle. He picked up a box of permanent black hair dye, his heart thumping. It felt momentous-like. He was crossing a threshold. He paid for it with money he'd saved from a gig. trying to act casual as if buying hair dye was an everyday occurrence for him. Back home, he waited for his parents to go to bed. He told Mama he wasn't feeling well. Wanted an early night, he snuck into the bathroom, locked the door, and stared at himself in the mirror. His blonde hair, familiar and comforting, looked back at him. This was it. There was no turning back. He read the instructions carefully. The strong chemical smell filled the small bathroom. He mixed the dye, the dark liquid looking ominous in the bowl. Took a deep breath, dipped the brush in, and started applying it to his hair. The sensation was strange, cool, and slightly tingly. As the blonde strands turned darker, then a deep, almost inky black, he felt a peculiar transformation, happening not just on his head, but within him. This wasn't about changing his appearance for a record cover or a performance. This was about changing himself symbolically for a greater purpose. The black hair wasn't a fashion statement. It was a silent oath. It was a promise to Lily May, a promise he was making to himself. "This is for Lily May," he whispered to his reflection, his voice husky. "This is so you can be invisible, so you can help her without anyone knowing." He left the dye on for the recommended time, then rinsed it out, the water running dark down the drain. He looked in the mirror again. Staring back was a stranger, yet somehow a more determined version of himself. His eyes, usually bright blue, now seemed more intense against the stark black of his hair. The change was dramatic, undeniable. He dried his hair, styling it carefully. It felt heavier, somehow more serious. He knew his mama would notice immediately in the morning. He dreaded her questions, but he was ready with a vague. He'd say he just wanted a change, a new look. He hoped she wouldn't push too hard. That night he barely slept. His mind was racing, planning his first secret mission. He already had the art supplies waiting. He'd wait until late, when the streets were deserted. He imagined Lily May's surprise, her quiet wonder when she discovered the package. The thought filled him with a warmth that chased away the lingering chemical smell of the dye. He was no longer just Elvis Presley, the boy from Tupelo, the aspiring singer from Memphis. He was also her guardian angel, her secret benefactor, hidden in plain sight, protected by a cloak of midnight hair. This act, he knew, would be more profound than any song he ever sang, more meaningful than any applause he ever received. It was a secret, silent symphony of kindness, and the black hair was its first bold note. He was ready. The first light of dawn crept through Elvis's bedroom window, painting the familiar room in hues of soft gray. He had barely slept, his mind buzzing with a mixture of apprehension and quiet excitement. He reached up, touching his hair. It was no longer the sandy blonde he'd known his entire life. Now it was a deep, startling black, reflecting the dim light like polished obsidian. It felt different, heavier, but alcerite. It was a tangible marker of his silent vow. He got out of bed, dressed, and quietly made his way to the kitchen where his Mama Gladys was already humming as she prepared breakfast. The smell of frying bacon and coffee filled the small house, a comforting aroma he'd always associated with home and safety. He took a deep breath, bracing himself. Gladys turned from the stove, a warm smile on her face, but her eyes widened as they landed on him. The spoon she was holding nearly clattered to the floor. "Elvis, Aaron!" she exclaimed, her voice a mix of shock and concern. "Goodness gracious, boy, what in the world did you do to your hair?" She walked closer, reaching out to touch his dark strands, her brow furrowed. It's black. Why, son, why'd you go and do a thing like that?" Her tone was worried, not angry. She always fretted over him. He offered her a reassuring, if slightly sheepish smile. "Just a change, Mama. Felt like doing something different. You know, a new look for the new music." He hoped the vague answer would suffice. He knew she trusted him implicitly, and that trust was a precious thing. He didn't want to betray it, but he couldn't reveal his true motivation. Not yet. Gladys continued to inspect his hair, her fingers gently sifting through it. "Well, I declare," she murmured, a faint smile touching her lips. "It's certainly striking, makes your eyes stand out." "Elvis, but are you sure you like it? It's awful dark." "I like it, Mama," he said, injecting as much confidence as he could into his voice. "Don't you worry, it'll be fine," she sighed. A familiar, resigned sound. "All right, darling, if you say so. Just so long as you're happy." She hugged him tightly as she always did, her arms a warm, comforting embrace. In that moment, he felt a pang of guilt for keeping his true purpose from her. But the thought of Lily Mae, alone and struggling, quickly pushed the guilt aside. This was for Lily Mae. This was important. Later that evening, as the city of Memphis settled into a quiet hum, Elvis prepared for his first secret mission. He waited until the streetlights cast long, lonely shadows and the last few cars had gone home. He double-checked his brown paper package. The sketchbook, charcoal pencils, and eraser were tucked inside. He pulled on a dark jacket, blending even further into the twilight. His dark hair felt like a natural extension of his purpose now, a silent accomplice. He slipped out the back door, careful not to make a sound, and began his walk towards Lily Mae's alley. The night air was cooler now. A gentle breeze rustling the leaves on the trees. He moved quietly, sticking to the shadows, his heart thrumming a low, steady beat. The alley was even darker than he remembered, a tunnel of gloom between the buildings. He found the old shed, a hulking shape against the faint glow of the distant city lights. He approached the shed door, his movements precise and silent. He found a small, sturdy ledge just beside the door, hidden from casual view. He carefully placed the brown paper package there, ensuring it wouldn't fall or be easily seen by anyone other than Lily Mae. He wanted it to feel like a discovery, not an obvious delivery. As he turned to leave, a wave of profound satisfaction washed over him. It wasn't the thrill of a performance or the roar of applause. It was a deeper, more personal fulfillment. He had taken action, had done something concrete and selfless. The dark hair, now an undeniable part of him, felt like a silent testament to this commitment. It wasn't about vanity or image, it was about purpose. He slipped away, melting back into the shadows, leaving behind a beacon of hope in a forgotten corner of Memphis. He imagined Lily Mae's face when she found it, the surprise, the wonder. He hoped it would light a spark in her, reassure her that she wasn't alone, that someone out there believed in her dreams. Back home, as he quietly let himself in, he ran a hand over his dark hair. It was a physical reminder of his secret, a promise etched in pigment. He might be Elvis Presley to the world, the boy with the golden voice and the new dramatic hair. But to himself and to the quiet girl in the dilapidated shed, he was something more. A silent protector, a weaver of dreams. His compassion hidden just beneath the surface, as deep and dark as his new hair. He felt a quiet joy, knowing that a small piece of beauty had just been planted in a world that sorely needed it. The next morning, Lily Mae arrived at her secret shed, her usual quiet steps echoing faintly in the narrow alley. The air was still cool from the night, carrying the faint scent of dew and damp earth. The shed, her refuge from the world, always felt like a warm embrace, even when empty. But today, something was different as she approached the sagging wooden door. She noticed it. A small, neat brown paper package sitting on the hidden ledge beside the door. Her heart gave a little flutter. She frowned, confused. No one ever came to her shed. No one knew about it. Who could have left this? Her small, calloused fingers reached out tentatively, touching the package. It felt sturdy, weighty. A strange mix of fear and curiosity warred within her. Slowly, carefully, she unwrapped the twine and unfolded the paper. Inside, nestled snugly, were treasures beyond her wildest dreams. A brand new, crisp sketchbook, its pages smooth and inviting. A box perfectly sharp and untouched. And a clean white eraser, a luxury she'd only ever dreamed of. Lily Mae stared at them, her green eyes wide with disbelief. Her breath hitched. It wasn't a mistake, was it? These weren't discarded items, but new, beautiful art supplies. Someone had left them for her. A warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she rarely experienced. It was like a whisper in the wind, a secret message just for her. Who could it be? She looked around, scanning the empty alley, but there was no one, just the familiar brick walls and the clear morning sky. She clutched the supplies to her chest, her heart swelling with an emotion she couldn't quite name, a mix of wonder, gratitude, and a fragile new hope. For so long she had felt invisible, her dreams like faint whispers that only she could hear. But this was real. Someone saw her, someone believed. That day the shed felt brighter, infused with a new energy. Lily Mae spent hours sketching the smooth paper, a luxury, the charcoal pencils gliding across the surface with an ease she'd never known. She drew everything. The gnarled tree outside, the stray cat that sometimes visited, a fantastical creature born from her imagination. Each stroke felt like a conversation with her mysterious benefactor. A silent thank you. A few days later, Elvis made another nocturnal visit. He was drawn by an irresistible curiosity, a quiet hope that she had found the gifts. He approached the shed, his dark hair a comforting cloak in the night. As he reached the hidden ledge, he saw it. Not the package he'd left, but a small, carefully folded piece of paper. He picked it up, his fingers trembling slightly. It was a drawing, a small, intricate sketch of the oak tree in the park where he'd first seen her humming. And at the bottom, scrawled in a careful, childlike hand, were two words: "Thank you." A profound wave of emotion washed over Elvis. It was more powerful than the loudest applause, more moving than the most heartfelt lyric. Her small, anonymous thank you spoke volumes. It validated his decision, his secret mission. It confirmed that he was making a difference. The warmth that bloomed in his chest was unlike anything he had ever felt. He tucked the drawing carefully into his pocket, a precious treasure. This was the true reward. He felt a renewed sense of purpose, a deeper commitment to Lily Mae. He wasn't just giving her supplies, he was giving her hope, and she, in turn, was giving him something equally profound. Over the next few weeks, Elvis continued his secret deliveries. Sometimes it was a new set of colored pencils, sometimes a book on drawing techniques, once even a small, brand-new watercolor set. Each time he found a new drawing or a simple note of thanks waiting for him. Lily Mae's art was blossoming, her lines growing more confident, her subjects more imaginative. He saw her from a distance, carrying her new sketchbook, her step a little lighter, a faint smile often playing on her lips. She seemed to be emerging from her shell like a shy flower, finally finding the sunlight. He realized his dark hair, initially a practical disguise, had taken on a deeper meaning. It was a symbol of his secret life, a quiet dedication to this girl in her dreams. When he looked in the mirror, he didn't just see a new hairstyle. He saw the commitment behind it, the silent promise. It was his invisible crown worn only for her. The whispers around the neighborhood also changed. People started to notice Lily Mae more. "That Lily Mae," he overheard someone say at the diner. "She's always drawing some mighty fine pictures too. Didn't know she had it in her." Elvis smiled to himself, stirring his coffee. They didn't know the half of it. They didn't know the silent benefactor, the dark-haired stranger who slipped through the shadows, carrying hope in a brown paper bag. They didn't know the secret language of charcoal and quiet thanks, but he knew. And that was all that mattered. Lily Mae was blooming, and he, in his quiet way, was helping her grow. Black hair, once a drastic change, now felt utterly natural, a part of who he was becoming. As the weeks turned into months, Elvis's secret missions to Lily Mae's shed became a quiet rhythm in his life. He found profound satisfaction in leaving the gifts, watching from a distance. As Lily Mae grew more confident, her drawings more vibrant. The black hair had settled into his identity, a subtle yet powerful reminder of his purpose. He was still Elvis, the boy with the guitar, but he was also the anonymous giver, the silent guardian. However, as his music career began its slow, inevitable ascent, the world outside his personal bubble started to intrude. Local gigs became more frequent, his face and voice more recognizable. The danger of his secret being discovered grew with each passing day. One evening, Elvis had carefully chosen a new set of fine-tipped pens and a small, delicate watercolor palette for Lily Mae. He knew she'd love them. He waited. Until even later than usual, the moon a sliver in the sky, casting long, inky shadows across the deserted streets. He moved with practiced ease, his dark hair blending perfectly with the night. He reached the alley, his footsteps light and almost imperceptible. As he neared the shed, a sudden noise froze him, a rustle in the shadows just at the mouth of the alley. His heart leaped into his throat, pressed himself against the rough brick wall, holding his breath, clutching the paper bag to his chest. A figure emerged from the darkness, a local night watchman, old Mr. Henderson, making his rounds. Mr. Henderson was a good man, but notoriously observant. If he saw Elvis, especially in the dead of night, skulking around an alley, questions would certainly be asked. And Elvis couldn't risk Lily Mae's secret, or his own. Mr. Henderson walked slowly, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness, sweeping across the ground closer and closer to Elvis's hiding spot. Elvis held his breath, willing himself to be invisible. Pulled the collar of his jacket up higher, further obscuring his face. His black hair, he realized with a jolt, was his best defense. Without it, his distinctive blonde would have instantly given him away. The black hair truly was his cloak, a silent promise to remain hidden for Lily Mae's sake. The flashlight beam flickered briefly, illuminating the part of the wall where Elvis stood before moving on. He didn't dare move a muscle. Mr. Henderson paused, seemed to sniff the air, then muttered something about a stray cat and continued on his way, his footsteps slowly fading into the distance. Elvis let out a long, shaky breath. He hadn't realized he was holding that was too close. His hands were clammy, his heart hammering against his ribs. He waited a few more minutes, listening intently, before cautiously emerging from the shadows. Quickly placed the package on the ledge, his movements more hurried than usual, and then retreated, moving swiftly and silently back towards his home. Close call served as a stark reminder of the delicate balance he was trying to maintain. His public life as Elvis Presley, the rising star, was on a collision course with his private life as Lily Mae's anonymous benefactor. The dark hair, initially a symbol of his commitment, was now becoming a necessary shield. The very next day, Elvis heard some worrying news. Lily Mae's family was struggling even more. Her father had lost some work, and there were rumors they might have to move to a smaller, cheaper place, further away, perhaps even leave Memphis. The thought sent a jolt of panic through him. If Lily Mae moved, what would happen to her, shed to her art, to her fragile spark of hope? His resolve deepened. He couldn't let her lose her sanctuary, her pathway to self-expression, just as she was beginning to bloom. He needed to do something more, something bigger, something that could provide her with a more stable foundation, regardless of where her family ended up. He started thinking about how he could use his burgeoning income. Couldn't just give them money directly. It would raise too many questions. But he could perhaps buy supplies for her for a long time to come. Or maybe subtly find a way to connect her to someone who could truly mentor her, someone who could see her talent and guide her professionally. The idea was daunting. It would require more planning, more risk. But when he imagined Lily Mae, her face alight with joy, as she found a new set of paints, or her quiet concentration as she sketched, he knew he couldn't stop. The dark hair on his head felt heavier, a testament to the weight of his promise. It wasn't just a secret anymore. It was a mission that was growing in scope and urgency. He had to ensure Lily Mae's future, even as his own future was hurtling him towards superstar. The black hair, once a quiet symbol, was now a silent declaration of war. Weeks turned into months, and the whisper of Lily Mae's talent began to grow louder. Thanks to the steady stream of supplies and quiet encouragement, her skills had blossomed. She spent every spare moment in her shed, the walls slowly filling with her intricate drawings and vibrant watercolors. Her initial shyness started to recede, replaced by a quiet confidence that shone in her green eyes. One warm autumn afternoon, as Elvis walked past the local community center, he saw a flyer tacked to a bulletin board. Memphis Young Artists Pay Show. Call for submissions. His heart skipped a beat. This was it. A chance for Lily Mae to be seen, to be recognized. It was exactly what he had hoped for. Even if he couldn't take credit for it, he wondered if she would dare to submit something. He knew how modest and self-effacing she was. Considered leaving another anonymous note, gently suggesting she enter. But he resisted the urge. He wanted this to be her decision, her moment. He trusted that the quiet strength he'd seen in her would guide her. A few days before the submission deadline, he discreetly purchased a large, high-quality art paper pad and a set of professional-grade drawing pencils, a significant vest for him, and one of them, a stunning watercolor of the very oak tree under which he'd first seen her humming, had been chosen as a finalist. The young artist Petstro was held on a Saturday afternoon. Elvis, now more recognizable than ever, with a few local radio hits under his belt, knew he couldn't attend openly. He needed to be inconspicuous. He pulled a wide-brimmed hat low over his eyes, donned a pair of dark sunglasses, and dressed in plain, unremarkable clothes. His black hair, usually styled in his growing signature pompadour, was brushed back more simply, making him less overtly Elvis. It was a delicate act of balancing his growing public persona with his deeply private mission. He slipped into the back of the community hall just as the showcase was about to begin. The room was bustling with proud parents, teachers, and curious onlookers. He moved to the very back, trying to appear as inconspicuous as possible, his heart pounding with a mixture of pride and nerves. And then he saw it, Lily Mae's watercolor. It was breathtaking. The oak tree stood tall and majestic, its leaves a riot of fiery autumn colors, painted with an astonishing detail and emotional depth for someone so young. The light filtered through the branches, casting dappled shadows on the grass just as he remembered it. But what truly struck him was the subtle inclusion of a tiny, almost hidden figure beneath the tree, sketching quietly a self-portrait perhaps, or representation of her inner world. It was poignant, beautiful, and utterly her. He watched as people gathered around it, murmuring words of admiration. He saw Lily Mae standing shyly by the exhibit, her cheeks flushed with a faint blush, her green eyes wide with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Her parents were there too, looking somewhat bewildered, but undeniably proud. It was clear they hadn't fully grasped the extent of her talent until this moment. The judges, a panel of local artists and teachers, finally made their announcement. And then the words he had longed to hear: the grand prize for the Memphis young artist Petstro goes to Lily Mae Johnson. But Cher erupted, and Lily Mae, looking stunned, walked slowly to the stage. She accepted her certificate and a small prize, a gift certificate to the art supply store. As she spoke a few shy words of thanks, her voice soft but clear, Elvis felt a lump form in his throat. This was it. This was the fruit of their shared secret, the manifestation of his quiet promise. The black hair hidden beneath his hat felt like a silent badge of honor. He didn't stay long. He didn't want to risk being recognized and drawing attention away from Lily Mae. He just needed to witness her triumph. As he slipped out, he passed by the oak tree, painting one last time. He saw the tiny figure under the tree lost in her art, and felt a surge of profound satisfaction. His anonymous act of kindness, symbolized by his hair color, had helped this young soul find her voice, her path. It was a victory more significant than any sold-out show. Back in the solitude of his home, he ran a hand through his dark hair. It wasn't just a look anymore. It was the legacy of a hidden promise, a commitment to nurturing a dream. And as his own star began its undeniable ascent, the black hair would serve as a constant reminder of the deeper purpose that had driven him from the very beginning. Triumph of Lily Mae's art showcase filled Elvis with a deep, quiet joy. But it also served as a stark reminder of the escalating challenge of his secret. His own career was exploding. Heartbreak Hotel had hit the airwaves like a bolt of lightning, and suddenly Elvis Presley wasn't just a local sensation. He was a national phenomenon. Life became a whirlwind of recording sessions, tours, television appearances, and screaming fans. Every moment was scheduled, every move scrutinized. The demands on his time and privacy were immense. The sandy blonde boy from Memphis had vanished, replaced by the iconic dark-haired Elvis. His image splashed across magazines and newspapers. The black hair, once his secret cloak for Lily Mae, was now his most recognizable feature. His brand, photographers captured it, fans adored it, and critics dissected it. No one knew its true origin, its hidden meaning. It was seen as a bold fashion statement, a rebellious streak, a calculated part of his stage persona. He remembered the early days, dyeing his hair in secret, the chemical smell in the bathroom, whispering his promise to Lily Mae. Now his hair was professionally styled, meticulously cared for, an integral part of the legend. The irony wasn't lost on him. The very thing he had adopted for invisibility and purpose was now making him impossibly visible. Maintaining his secret missions became almost impossible. He couldn't slip away unseen anymore. Every hotel had fans waiting. Every street corner held a potential photographer. The thought of being caught, of the world dissecting his private act of kindness and turning it into a public spectacle, filled him with dread. It would not only expose him, but more importantly, likely embarrass Lily Mae and strip her quiet triumph of its dignity. He found himself struggling with the balance. His heart still pulled him towards Lily Mae, towards the anonymous act of nurturing her talent. But his public life was a demanding, insatiable beast. There were times he felt like he was living two completely separate lives, and the strain was immense. He still managed occasionally to send gifts through trusted, very discreet channels, a small art scholarship in an anonymous name, rare art books ordered from faraway cities and delivered with no return address. He never stopped thinking of her, wondering about her progress. The black hair was a constant, almost painful reminder of his commitment. When he ran his hand through it, he wasn't thinking of his next performance. He was thinking of Lily Mae and the promise he'd made. One late night, after a Gulen recording session, Elvis sat alone in his hotel room, staring at his reflection in the mirror. His dark hair gleamed under the lamplight. "This isn't about looks," he murmured, the words almost a mantra. It was never about looks. He remembered the quiet, determined young man who had first picked up that box of hair dye driven by compassion. That part of him was still there beneath the layers of fame and adoration. He wondered if Lily Mae ever thought about her mysterious benefactor. Did she suspect? Did she imagine a dark-haired stranger? He hoped she simply accepted the gifts as a blessing, a sign that her talent was valued without seeking to uncover the source. His mama Gladys still occasionally mentioned his hair. "It suits you now, Elvis," she'd say, a soft smile on her face. "Hard to imagine you any other way." She'd accepted it, like the rest of the world, but she didn't know the silent agreement it represented. She didn't know the weight of the secret he carried with every dark strand. He picked up a newspaper from the table. His face stared back at him, larger than life, his dark hair gleaming. The caption beneath talked about his dramatic new image and how it had revolutionized rock and roll. He shook his head slowly. They had no idea. The image was born of a far more profound purpose than they could ever imagine. It was born from a quiet act of kindness, a desperate desire to help a lonely, talented girl find her way in the world. The shadow of fame stretched long and wide, threatening to engulf his personal life. But Elvis held onto his secret, clung to it with fierce determination. It was the last pure, untouched part of him, a reminder of who he truly was beneath the glittering facade. The black hair, his public identity, remained his private symbol, a beacon of a promise, kept a dream, nurtured in the shadows. He knew he couldn't walk away from Lily Mae's journey, even if he had to become an even more distant, more anonymous presence in her life. Years passed. The 1950s gave way to the 1960s, and Elvis Presley cemented his place as the king of rock and roll. His fame was global. his schedule relentless, direct. Anonymous visits to Memphis were impossible. The little girl from the alley, Lily Mae, was now a young woman, her own life unfolding. In ways Elvis could only imagine from afar, he still thought of her, though. More than a thought. It was a quiet, steady undercurrent in his mind. He never forgot the promise tied to his now famous black hair. Through his manager, Colonel Tom Parker, he occasionally learned snippets of news about the young artist from Memphis. A deliberately vague description used to keep the colonel in the dark about the personal connection. Elvis ensured that Lily Mae received scholarships, art supplies delivered anonymously through various channels, and even subtle indirect opportunities for her work to be seen by important figures in the art world. He never directly intervened, always operating in the shadows, letting her talent speak for itself. Then one day a news clipping landed on his desk. It wasn't about him, it was about Lily Mae. Her full name was there, bold and clear. She had just been awarded a prestigious National Art Fellowship, allowing her to study abroad in Paris, the heart of the art world. The article featured a photograph of her older. Now her green eyes still holding that quiet intensity, but also a newfound confidence. She looked graceful, poised, her art achieving recognition on a global scale. Elvis stared at the photo, a wave of profound emotion washing over him. A mix of immense pride, relief, and a bittersweet pang of distance. She had done it. All those silent gifts, all those careful interventions had helped her reach this moment. He remembered her small, shy figure in the alley, her worn clothes, her dreams hidden in a dilapidated shed. Now she was going to Paris. He immediately reached out to a trusted confidant, someone completely outside his music circle, someone who knew a little of his secret. He tasked them with sending Lily Mae a very special anonymous gift. It wasn't money or more supplies. It was a single exquisite vintage, charcoal drawing pencil. The kind used by master artists, along with a blank, beautiful sketch pad. Tucked inside the pad, he insisted, must be a small, hand-drawn sketch of an oak tree, similar to the one she had drawn for him years ago. And beneath it, two simple words carefully chosen: bloom on. Only Lily Mae would understand. The oak tree was their shared secret, the symbol of their silent connection. Bloom on was a quiet acknowledgement of her journey, and a subtle nod to the anonymous encourager who had watched her grow. Thousands of miles away, in her small apartment, filled with boxes, preparing for her move to Paris, Lily Mae received the package. She opened it carefully. Her fingers traced the elegant charcoal pencil, feeling its weight and balance. Then she saw the sketch pad, and inside the drawing, her breath caught the oak tree. She knew that tree. She had drawn it 1,000 times. The gifts, the opportunities, the sudden scholarships, she had always wondered about her mysterious benefactor. People had told her it was just good luck or a testament to her talent. But she had always felt a guiding hand, a silent presence. She looked at the small oak tree sketch. It was so familiar, so comforting. And for a fleeting moment, a memory flashed in her mind. A young man, years ago, with a new, striking black hair, walking past her porch, his eyes whole. But the memory lingered, a wisp of a dream, a whisper of a feeling. She held the sketch pad to her chest, a profound sense of gratitude overwhelming her. She might never know who her benefactor was, but she knew deep in her soul that this person had changed her life. They had given her the courage to believe in herself, to reach for the impossible. Elvis, thousands of miles away, received confirmation that the package had been delivered. He smiled, a genuine private smile that rarely reached the cameras. He knew she had received it. He knew she understood, at least in part. His dark hair, now a part of his legend, had served its truest purpose. It wasn't about fame or fortune, or even just a new look. It was about a hidden promise, a life. quietly. And in that moment, he felt an immense peace, knowing that Lily Meg was blooming just as he had hoped. Decades passed. Elvis Presley became an enduring legend, his music weaving itself into the very fabric of American culture. The black hair remained, his iconic look synonymous with his rebellion, his charisma, his unique style. Millions of fans adored it, imitators copied it, and fashion trends followed it. But to Elvis, especially in his quieter moments, it was never just about looks. It was the symbol of a promise, kept a testament to a silent act of kindness. In his later years, sometimes late at night when the world was asleep and the demands of fame receded, Elvis would sit alone perhaps in his Graceland home. He would run a hand through his dark hair. A thoughtful, almost reverent gesture. He would remember that young boy fresh out of the barber shop, looking at his radically transformed reflection, whispering a vow to help a lonely, struggling girl. He never saw Lily Mae again in person, but he occasionally read about her. Lily Mae Johnson became a renowned artist. Her work celebrated in galleries across the world. She never forgot the mysterious gifts, the anonymous encouragements that had set her on her path. In interviews, she would often speak of a profound, inexplicable sense of being supported, of a hidden hand that guided her in her early struggling years. She often mentioned the quiet whisper of hope that appeared when she needed it most. She even established a foundation, anonymously, to help aspiring young artists from disadvantaged backgrounds, paying forward the kindness she had received. Elvis would read these articles, a warmth spreading through him. He saw her art sometimes in magazines, sometimes in books, and recognized the enduring spirit of that little girl in the alley. Her paintings were often filled with deep, earthy tones, but also bursts of vibrant color and recurring motifs of strong, ancient trees. A quiet nod to their shared secret. He knew, he always knew. The black hair, which the world saw as a fashion statement, was his living legacy of compassion. It wasn't about being cool or edgy. It was about being a guardian, a secret giver of hope. It was about seeing a hidden spark in a child and deciding silently, wholeheartedly to nurture it. Years after Elvis's passing, the stories about his life were countless. His music continued to inspire. His image continued to captivate, but the true story behind his black hair remained his own. It was a secret kept close to his heart, a personal testament to his deeply caring nature. Lily Mae, now an esteemed elder in the art world, would sometimes be asked about her early life, about what inspired her. She would always speak of a profound, unexplained kindness. She'd speak of the whispers in the wind, the mysterious gifts, and the unwavering belief that someone, somewhere saw her and believed in her. She'd reflect on the unique drawing of the oak tree she had received before going to Paris, and the words, "bloom on." She had a theory, a quiet intuition, but she kept it to herself. A sacred trust. She knew the legend of Elvis Presley's black hair, how it was seen as a bold style choice. But sometimes, when she saw old photographs of him, particularly from his early days, she would notice something in his eyes, a depth, a quiet determination that resonated with her, and she would feel a connection, a knowing smile playing on her lips. She understood that some of the greatest acts of love and generosity are the ones done in silence, without expectation of recognition. The real reason Elvis Presley dyed his hair black had nothing to do with looks. It had everything to do with the heart of a young man, a promise to a quiet girl, and the enduring power of a single act of compassion. His iconic black hair was a symbol, not of rebellion, but of profound love, a silent, beautiful melody played out in the quiet corners of Memphis, forever woven into the legend of the king and the blossoming life he secretly touched. And that, in its own way, was the most beautiful look of all.